she should not refuse to share his bed. And you can take that to mean what you will, but I'll remind you that if you find any of this objectionable, then you should find objectionable the doctrines from which they spring.
Does Islam explain reality better than atheism? The Islamic scholar Mohammed Hijab and the young philosopher Alex O'Connor are on opposite sides of the issue, delivering a verbal battle worth watching. Alex has several hard-hitting arguments up his sleeve, but in this video I want to focus specifically on his criticism of gender inequality found in the Quran. Islam, like almost all religions, has its own unique moral framework, a basic set of rules that informs its adherents what to eat, how to pray, and how to treat their fellow human beings. The Quran, and religious morality generally, assert that these rules aren't simply useful guidelines invented by ordinary humans, but that they're authored by God, and thus objectively true and real.
Islam teaches that there is an objective basis to morality in the world. That when you say something is right or wrong, that is a true statement, and that's as true as something like the proposition that the earth orbits the sun. It is a matter of fact. And that means that part of the reality that we're trying to describe with the Islamic worldview is moral realism. There has to be moral truths that are as real as the metaphysical claims that it's making. And what that means, ladies and gentlemen, is that if you find moral claims within the doctrines of Islam that you don't agree with, then you don't agree with Islam.
Alex O'Connor then reads a passage from the Quran on the treatment of women that almost everyone in today's world would find starkly immoral.
Men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous are women who are devoutly obedient, guarding in their husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them, then if they persist, forsake them in bed, and finally strike them. But if they obey you, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever exalted in grandeur.
He argues that if your moral sense tells you this is wrong, then you should conclude that the Quran and ultimately Islam are wrong. However, I think there are a couple of problems with this argument. Firstly, Alex O'Connor is a moral subjectivist, someone who believes that the basis of morality is subjective. He sees the many incompatible moral frameworks in the world and concludes from this that there are no objectively right and wrong answers. It's all just a matter of subjective preference.
You have to first prove your morality. You're a subjective moralist. You don't believe in objective morality. Don't ask me about morality. You don't believe in it. Prove it. That's an active claim.
It makes no sense, therefore, for him to suggest that the morality of the Quran is wrong, simply because it doesn't agree with his judgment of what is right and wrong. Because it's just as subjective as his preference for vanilla ice cream over chocolate. In my view, he doesn't stand on any firm ground to make this judgment. On the other hand, if you were asserting the objective truth of a different morality, whether Christian, Hindu, or even secular, he could then call out Islam for violating this objective morality. The burden of proof to show that Christianity or Hinduism is true would then, of course, be on him, but that's a different matter. Another problem with his argument is that it's unlikely to convince somebody whose starting point is that the Quran is true. Even devout Muslims get a little queasy when reading the line in the Quran that instructs husbands to strike their wives. It's very obvious that Mohammed Hijab himself is embarrassed by it, because he edited this part out in the version on his own channel. What Alex fails to realize is that this is precisely the reason for reading the holy books of an ancient tradition. If one's internal sense of right and wrong were already perfectly inerrant, there would be no reason to educate oneself on the matter. I'm of course not claiming that the Quran is right. What I'm claiming is that this is a completely ineffectual argument. A believer in Allah might just view their own discomfort with the given lines as evidence of not yet having actualized their spiritual potential, not yet having matured into the person that Allah demands them to be. Again, I encourage everybody to go ahead and watch the debate yourself, if you haven't already, and make up your own mind on the matter. Regardless of which side you stand on, this is a must-watch debate for anybody with a love for the art of argument.